cold, like a chicken from the fridge.
Eavesdropping.
Well, there she is, resplendent in a greying robe. Hello, Michelle.
Hi. I felt like I had to put the robe on. It's my lucky recording robe, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
And I was so re-inspired to wear it because of the eavesdropping doll and the accessories, the kazoo.
Oh, that kazoo.
I've got it all here.
Here's my kazoo.
Woohoo, the broken kazoo.
It's slightly broken. It just sounds like me going do 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 do.
It does a bit, yes.
It hasn't got that kazoo magic, you know?
No, it doesn't. But before we get into anything.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome, eavesdroppaloppers.
Hi, eavesdroppers. I'm Michelle. She's Geordie.
I'm Geordie. Yes. Thank you, Michelle. I can do it. I know how to say my name.
I know you do. You're a big girl now.
Thank you.
Yes. And you're an eavesdropper because you're listening in.
Who?
Eavesdropping on us, our listeners.
Yeah, not me, because we're having the conversation, you see. That's what it's all about. We have the conversation. You poor bastards listen in.
Yeah.
And laugh along and join in. Maybe sometimes yell at us. I know people do.
What?
They yell and say, "No, you've got it wrong. No, girls, that's ridiculous."
No, who says that?
Oh, a lot of people.
Oh, no.
They still listen week to week.
Yes, well, you think they're just there waiting for us to make the terrible errors.
To mess up. Do not, we say this over and over again, do not take these facts and run with them. Do not sit there at the next dinner party you go to and use it as some sort of, oh, guess what I've discovered this week, guys? Did you know? Blah, blah, blah. Because it's bound to be slightly wrong. You might get laughed out of the room. We call it dinner party kamikaze.
We do indeed. And you even wrote a ditty.
It's wrong, you goose. We're playing fast and loose. Don't come with us back. We do the fancy acts. Dinner party kamikaze. We're fast and loose. But listen, Michelle, speaking of dinner party kamikaze, I've got a little something for you.
Lay it on me.
A lot of Epstein stuff floating around in the internets.
Oh, there is, yes.
Guess what I heard?
What did you hear?
And I will say that this is not verified by anything other than claims circulating online. They allege these claims that's circulating online, like your Reddits and your various written by the public news sources like Medium and whatnot, that Epstein apparently grew zombie drugs. Do you remember we talked about scopolamine, devil's breath a few weeks ago, maybe last month it was?
Did.
Yes,
yeah.
I introduced you to this awful thing, which is apparently a real thing. It is real.
Yeah.
Scopolamine. It's used in travel sickness, and apparently in some parts of Colombia they use it to get people to do what they want, because you enter into this kind of malleable state.
Zombie-like state.
Well, yeah.
A little bit.
But apparently he grew these plants called angel trumpets and has been seen, some emails, apparently, allegedly, etc., has been seen going back and forth about, what did he call them? His trumpet plants.
Right, okay.
So if that's true, it has a certain element of that film I told you about, where there's an island and they give these girls drugs that they can't remember being attacked every night.
Yes.
Blink Twice. It's called Blink Twice. Don't watch it. It's too shocking.
It's really awful, this whole Epstein stuff. And I've had to dip out, Geordie.
Yes, dip right out.
I've had to dip out because it's too much. The snippets I do read are so disturbing and upsetting that I just feel like I can't go down that rabbit hole because it will just be too awful.
Well, it will be a rabbit hole as well, Michelle, because, all this stuff that's going on right now, the first person to fall, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, was arrested for trading in national secrets. Apparently.
Shit.
It's no surprise that some of the royal family want a bit more money. I think Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, has been doing it for years, trading information for cash, sidling up to these people who kind of see what's coming and take advantage of them. However, now there's pictures of him with a toddler. It's probably a cousin.
What?
Well, there's just pictures of him like as probably an uncle of someone playing with a kid. Unfortunately,
Right.
the kid is playing with a ball that looks like a boob.
What?
Yes.
Oh, God.
But
okay,
people are reading things into it. And of course, they go straight to the baby eating and these elites that are breeding people for their own fun and consumption. And I know that it's been true in history, especially in the slave trade. But how true is it now these days? I just don't know. I just wish people would just slow down, hold on to your hats a little bit, just
take a breath.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
Yes, shit happens. People are being people trafficked of all different races and creeds and colours and from all parts of the world. When there's an imbalance of power, things do go wrong.
Yeah.
Of course they do, but let's just hold your horses there, Nellie, as you like to say.
But you're not saying hold your horses on the whole Epstein thing.
No, go nuts on that, but just don't go too nuts like baby eating and Andrew Mountbatten. Just because he has a child in his life doesn't mean that he's abusing that child.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, the child has a booby ball, which I don't understand, but whatever.
Yeah. It's a bit weird. But like I said, I've had to shut off from it all because it's a bit too much. Saying that, I have been watching Maths Australia. That's the antidote.
Oh, good for you. I'm not going to.
Don't do it. Don't do it. You lose too much of your life to these.
Exactly that.
These people who, there's been drams, so much drams.
I'm sure there has. That's what it's all about.
I don't really believe they've tried to match up people to really give them a chance at love. But I still watch.
Do you think maybe it's jumped the shark? It's had its day.
No.
This kind of public humiliation and setting people up to fail, maybe in a bit of old hat now.
No. I think that people are still obsessively watching because it is that what's going to happen next. Even though we know what's going to happen next, we just keep watching. I just keep watching. I think people will always be interested in observing fly in a wall, other people's lives and the dramas. Jen's watching. She says it's all scripted. She watches anyway.
Watches anyway. I did actually see something over the weekend. I spent a bit of time melded to my couch, rotting into my couch, as you like to say.
You're going to rot in your sofa.
I ended up watching something about America's Next Top Model. It was a documentary just looking back at those years of America's Next Top Model, started by Tyra Banks, hosted by Tyra Banks, trying to give plus size, shorter, different races of model a better chance in the industry, but it really blew it open. And of course, it's a reality show. It watches these poor girls who are trying to get a shot or a leg up in the industry. It watches them go through all sorts of things, and a lot of things are shown that maybe shouldn't be shown. And it made me feel a bit sick afterwards. And I thought, I'm part of this problem by watching these TV shows.
Yeah.
These poor people have their lives ruined. If you're interested, watch. It's on Netflix right now.
You have to remember it was the early days of reality TV. We all were drawn in, still are.
But what's changed?
I think there's more awareness around the mental health effects of people who have been on these shows. We've seen a lot of people take their own lives over the years.
Wow.
Who have been on reality shows, and now I think, correct me if I'm wrong, getting more support afterwards, being offered more counselling. But still, maybe it's less about where the problem and more about what is it that compels people to want to go on these shows. Are they fame seekers? Are they looking for something else? I know that when I put my hand up for Married at First Sight, it was the very first incarnation of it where it was actually designed to match people up. There were no dinner parties. There was nothing. There were bloody priests involved. It was definitely not the spectacle it's turned into. And I did it for all the right reasons. They talk about that a lot on Maths. But you do have to think, what is it that people are searching for when they want to go on these shows?
Yeah.
There's two sides to all these stories. But yeah, speaking of models, there was a podcast I listened to, and the titles escape my memory right now. It was an expose on one of the top model scouts in America and how he started his own agency and all the fuck ups. It really blew the lid wide open and off the modeling world. And I'll pop a link to that if you're interested.
Do.
Over on the Patreon. And if you are not signed up, why the bloody hell not?
As Michelle continues to say,
yes.
It's okay. You don't have to.
No.
You don't have to get free episodes every month. You don't have to be a part of a community. You don't have to have an absolutely fantastic, comprehensive list of every single television show we've ever recommended and our eavesdroppers have ever recommended. You don't have to interact with us and chat with us on there. You don't have to have all the links that are attached to every episode.
Yes.
Because that's all on there. And if you want to buy us a cup of coffee, which you don't have to do, or buy us a packet of chewing gum, you also don't need to do that.
No.
Then you can. But we'll give you all these things in return.
We do.
How wonderful is that?
We are happy for our gorgeous patrons. We're happy for all of you listeners that you come back every week.
Thrilled with that.
Small apologies to anyone who's noticed the website has been troublesome over the past weeks. We are having issues. They're being resolved.
Fantastic.
Slowly. So hang in there with us.
We're just real people. We're just humans.
We are
humans. We get things wrong. Things go wrong.
Real humans with stories. And I've got one.
And feelings.
Got one for you
today. Before you start, Michelle, I've got a little bit of an update about 2 massive true crime cases. I don't think we've covered either of them. Have we done Zodiac?
Oh, we've touched on Zodiac over the years, yes, but I don't think we've done a full ep.
The Zodiac killer who was famously never found. Also, the Black Dahlia, the murder of Elizabeth Short in Hollywood in 1947. These 2 crime cases have obsessed America for many, many years. So Elizabeth Short was the name of the woman who was known as the Black Dahlia. Her body was found in LA, brutally mutilated, like cut in half. Ugh. And there's photos out there of it. And they think that whoever did this murdered her elsewhere, brought her there and had sort of surgical precision, a little bit like Jack the Ripper. Oof. And then in the 60s, late 60s, we've got the Zodiac killer who was terrorizing the Bay Area where's that? That's in San Francisco, isn't it?
Yes.
Taunting police with cryptic letters, including the infamous unsolved 13 character, "My name is." And no one could figure it out. They gave him this idea. How about you tell us what your name is? And he did it in this encrypted style. And for 40, 50, 60 years, no one has been able to break it. Except for now, an autistic, self-taught codebreaker from West Virginia named Alex Baber claims he's cracked that cipher using AI, letter frequency analysis, and obsessive cross-referencing of military and public records. And he says he's got the name that was hidden in the code.
What is it?
It's an alias that was used by one of the suspects in the Black Dahlia case.
Oh, so it could be all bullshit.
Well, there was a suspect named Marvin Margolis who used another alias. I can't remember what it was. And he was questioned but then let go over the Black Dahlia case. He was a troubled pre-med student and World War II Navy recruit. And he had briefly lived with Elizabeth Short for 12 days. She was frightened of him.
Right.
But he lied about that.
Okay.
No one could back it up. So Alex Baber has got retired homicide detectives intrigued about this. You've got former NSA cryptographers who say that the maths all checks out. And more compellingly, people have gone to the son of Marvin Margolis and asked about, some questions about his father. And he produced a sketch that he made, I think later in life, possibly on his deathbed, because Marvin Margolis is now dead.
Right.
And this sketch is called Elizabeth, and it depicts a woman from the waist up that looks like she's been cut in half. And it has a lot of shading in there, a lot of blood. There's a nipple that's been removed. Ugh. He has a lot of knowledge about the crime scene. But to be fair, a lot of those photos and case notes have been out there for all to see ever since Kenneth Anger's book, Hollywood Babylon. He had it all in there. You can know this stuff. But he seemed overly familiar with it. And not just that, it was called Elizabeth. I think I said that. And it had the words encrypted in some of the blood, Zodiac. It was shaded in.
Right.
The Sun originally showed this, but has now withdrawn access because on a lot of deep diving, they have found there was a lot of links to a Zodiac motel back after the Black Dahlia case. It's a hotel that he stayed in, which could have given him the idea for, what to call himself later on.
Right.
I don't know. It's a lot of patching things together.
Yes, a lot of speculation.
Speculation, but based on evidence. And they did have the cipher. Someone's cracked it.
Yes.
He's cracked it. No one else could do it. I think it's something worth pinning.
I think it's something worth pinning too. Those two cases are true crime classics. We've touched on both, never deep dived into either of them. No. This is very interesting. And of course, who's not using AI for trying to decipher things? You know, we've got this at our disposal. I'm sure there's all these web sleuths using AI to try to crack the code. So fantastic. If that's actually true, that's going to blow these cases wide open.
It's worth looking into. You can find information out there about this. I can give you a link. It will be on the Patreon, so you'd have to buy that packet of chewing gum.
Indeed.
Or you could just look for yourself.
Wow, thanks for that. Let's pin that and get back to it.
All right.
In the future.
Murder, murder.
It's true and it's crime.
Crime time. It's crime time.
Murder, murder.
Murder.
Crime time.
Crime time! This week, it's true crime.
True crime time.
And it's an Aussie true crime. I found this while digging around online, so maybe you've heard about it, maybe not. We're going to go back to 1993. So at around 4:30 in the morning on Saturday, 28th of August, 1993, a couple called Ted and Jan Warner were woken up by this loud banging on the door of their house on Prince Edward Park Road in Woronora, which is in Sydney South.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
Well, it's more Cronulla Shire.
The Shires.
It was quite unusual because that street was a quiet street, pretty suburban. So to have someone banging on your door at that hour was...
Yeah. Oh, it's always shocking having a bang on the door no matter what the time.
Fuck yes. Ted jumped up, opened the door, and found his 23-year-old neighbour, Geordie Gilham, standing there wearing nothing but a pair of boxer shorts, Geordie.
Gosh. Couldn't have just thrown on a grey robe?
A grey robe. It's got many uses. So apparently Geordie was kind of pale, he was shaking, and he smelled quite faintly of smoke. Now, Geordie apparently looked terrified, and he said to Ted, call 000, which for our international listeners is the Aussie emergency number like 911.
Yeah, or 999.
Or 999. And he told Ted that his brother, Christopher, had killed their parents and then set them on fire.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So Ted was like, fuck, come inside.
God.
And Jan, the wife, got him a blanket, wrapped him in the blanket because, you know, he's in his boxers.
Yeah.
And apparently Geordie kept repeating his parents were dead and that he'd killed his brother, Christopher, because of what he'd done.
Oh, my God. Imagine hearing that when you've just let this person into your house.
Yes. You've essentially let a murderer into your house because he'd killed the brother who'd killed the parents.
Oh, my God. And do you really know what really, really happened at this point? My mind would be racing like it is right now.
Yes. Well, hold those racing horses, Nellie, because we've got a lot in this case. It's a weird one. So, of course, Ted dialed 000 and was asked by the operator whether he thought Geordie had been drinking.
Right.
So Ted leaned in to smell his breath, and he couldn't smell any alcohol. But he did smell kerosene.
Oh. Hold that thought for a moment. 000, it's problematic, especially, when was this?
93.
Okay, maybe not so much in 93, you probably had button phones, but do you remember when you had the rotary dialing phone? It took ages. You're waiting. It should have been 111, the shorter journey.
The 0 was the longest dial on
It's the longest journey round the dial.
It was. It
doesn't make sense. 999 is the same as well, by the way, just less by one.
Yeah, but these days with beep, 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 it doesn't make any difference.
Exactly.
Yes. So Ted, at this point, handed over that phone to Geordie, who told the operator that his brother Christopher had murdered their parents.
Yeah.
And that
he
in turn killed Christopher.
Crikey.
So he's right on it, straight from the beginning.
He's admitting.
Mm-hmm. So firefighters arrived a few minutes later. They found smoke pouring out of the roof of the Gilham's house. Geordie was waiting by the bottom of the stairs, visibly distressed and rambling about his parents being inside. Fire crews forced open the glass doors at the back of the house and immediately were met by like heavy smoke and flames. The parents, Helen and Stephen Gilham's bedroom, was on fire.
Jeez.
And the fire had spread through the house into the lounge room. And within minutes, though, those firefighters got those flames under control.
Wow.
And the firefighters were able to enter the house properly. Inside that lounge room, they found Jeffrey's mum, Helen, lying face down near the front door. She had been stabbed 17 times, Geordie.
Oh.
Most of the wounds were on her chest.
Oh, God.
In the bedroom, Jeffrey's dad, Stephen, was found on the floor, 28 stab wounds.
Oh, dear.
Yep. Near that body was also an axe.
Oh, my God.
Yep. Downstairs, police found Jeffrey's brother, Christopher, lying near the billiard table. He was naked except for a dressing gown, a.k.a. robe.
Right.
He had been stabbed 17 times.
Oh, God, I don't feel like making a joke about the dressing gown at this point.
No.
This is awful.
I know. And those stab wounds were also mostly to the chest, and a knife lay beside him.
Oh, my gosh.
So Jeffrey was taken to the Sutherland police station near Cronulla and was interviewed that morning. He apparently sat there, still wrapped in that blanket from that couple next door. He was kind of quiet. He told detectives that the night before had been a pretty normal night. His girlfriend Hayley had come over for dinner and had left around 10. He'd watched some telly with his parents, then he'd showered, gone to bed in the boatshed beside the house, which apparently at 23 years of age was where he lived.
Right.
He said he was woken by his mother screaming for help over the intercom that connected the boatshed to the main house.
Oh. So she went to the intercom, pressed a button and screamed into it.
Yes.
Right.
I guess for help. Jeffrey said he ran through the garden and into the house, and in the lounge room he saw his mother lying on the floor and Christopher standing over her with a match.
Ew.
Christopher said apparently, "I've killed Mum and Dad." Then he set their mother on fire. Jeffrey said he saw his father's body burning in the bedroom.
Oh, God.
And according to Jeffrey, he picked up the knife from the floor and chased his brother Christopher down the spiral staircase into the rumpus room, where he stabbed him repeatedly. He said, "I just felt I had to get my brother."
Wow. I don't know about that response.
Jeffrey later told the court, "I don't remember stabbing him. I remember hitting him."
Oh.
He said he then ran back upstairs and went over next door to the Warner's house for help.
Where was the knife at this point? When did he drop the knife?
Well, it was found by the body, by Christopher's body.
So he just dropped it, ran. Okay. And no blood on him either when he turned up at the neighbours.
Well, that's it. When Ted and Jan Warner saw Jeffrey that night, they also noticed how clean he was.
Right.
There was hardly a speck on him. There was a spot of blood on his toe, a faint smear on his shin, and apparently traces were found under a fingernail. Apparently his hair was dry and his body was cold. And Ted, the neighbour, would later describe him cold like a chicken from the fridge. A chook from the fridge. Sorry. It's not funny, but...
No, sorry.
He was as cold as a chook from the fridge.
Why would he use that?
I don't know.
Was he hungry?
I don't know. Cold chook.
Thinking about the dinner later on that he was going to have? You probably wouldn't eat for days after this experience, honestly.
I know. Look, at first, the police totally accepted Jeffrey's account because the Gilhams were well liked. They were a nice family. The kids never got in trouble. The parents were never in trouble. Stephen, the dad, who was 58, he'd recently retired from the New South Wales Roads and Traffic Authority. He worked casually at the local boat shed. He liked golf. He was into sailing. Helen, the mum, was 55. 55, Geordie, when this happened.
That's not much, is it?
It's really young. She was a school nurse and apparently was just a nice, kind of caring, warm lady. The two sons, Jeffrey was 23 at the time. He was the younger son. He was apparently athletic and outgoing. He was a national sailing champion and a civil engineering student. Christopher was older. He was 25. He apparently was just a quiet kid. He was a bit of a computer geek. He liked fencing. he was a talented pianist and he wore glasses. He was dependent on those glasses as he did not have great eyesight. Pin that.
Okay.
So.
Hang on. Stop for a sec. Which one's which?
What do you mean?
Which one got murdered?
Christopher.
Oh, Christopher with the glasses. Okay.
Jeffrey was the brother that
That's
ran
right.
over.
So the younger brother, Jeffrey.
So Jeffrey, the survivor, is younger. Christopher, who's quiet and a bit geeky, is older.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, in the months before the murders, Jeffrey had gone around telling friends his brother was acting strangely and was becoming angry and unpredictable. He said Christopher had been arguing with their father and he'd seen him push the dad.
Wow.
And he thought there was tension about money and a car. Friends said, yeah, Jeffrey was telling them and seemed really worried about this. But when the police searched the property after the fire, they did find some weird things. Near the bins at the house was a 25-litre jerry can with about a litre of petrol in it and a piece of garden hose freshly cut from a longer piece. Now, Jeffrey explained this away and said he and his dad had been trying to siphon petrol from the car to mix fuel for a boat, but had given up when they realised it was the wrong type of fuel. Investigators called bullshit on that.
Yeah.
They said it seemed unlikely the dad, Stephen, would have been siphoning fuel late on a winter's night before he had an early golf game the next day. A neighbour called Christine Shaw said around 3:45 that morning, she'd been away because she had the flu. She was sick. She heard voices coming from the Gilham house.
Ooh.
One was deep and harsh and angry, and the other was high-pitched in distress, like a woman screaming.
Okay.
She said she heard these sounds for quite a few minutes before it all stopped at 3:57 in the morning.
Isn't that distressing? I mean, I've got some very noisy neighbours that I share a wall with. I think it's a house of multiple occupancy.
Yes, I've heard those noises.
And I have heard screaming in the night sometimes because I think there's a couple of girls and they scream. Are they having fun or are they not having fun? And when it stops suddenly, do you think that there's something untoward? What do you do? Are you supposed to be getting on the phone as a safeguarding measure? I just don't know.
I don't know. And also in this day and age, people don't want to get involved.
No.
They don't want to call the police and send them over only to wake up a household.
Yeah.
And it was a telly.
Well, I did actually post something on my neighbourhood WhatsApp group about the noise. And I got did I tell you this?
No.
I got the number wrong. And I had a very angry lady saying, I live at that number and I certainly wasn't having a party last night. Thank you very much.
Geordie, you got to get your facts right.
Well, okay.
Get your facts right.
Do we, though, Michelle? Do we have to get our facts right? Or do we just barge in with no facts whatsoever? Just a loosey-goosey little idea.
I did this recently. People were leaving trash at the end of our stairs on the street.
Right.
And we have a lot of apartment buildings here where they are rented out for Airbnb, and one of the cleaning companies were leaving all of their washing from the apartments, trash, and they weren't getting picked up for 5-6 days, and I'd had enough. So I sent this email to all these cleaning companies saying I'm going to get in touch with the local council because this is a health and safety issue. People can't get up, it's inviting rats and blah 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 blah. And then I kind of referenced one apartment building and the owners, anyway, it turns out they don't use that cleaning company anymore. And I got absolutely smashed. So they used to have it. They no longer have it. So I was partly right, but I didn't have my up-to-date facts. So, and yes, I got a very angry response back too. I had to do some groveling, but there's been none left on the street now for over a month. So, sometimes you have to do these things.
Someone's got to be the bitch.
Yes.
And it's usually you.
Thank you very much. Well, back to this bloody story.
Okay.
So this poor neighbour, she'd obviously heard this screaming. This was at 3:57 it all stopped, she said. Obviously, 4:30 was when Jeffrey ran to the neighbour's house, right?
In his boxes.
Exactly.
Weirdly cold like a chicken.
Weirdly cold like a chicken. What happened in that half an hour?
Did he have an ice cold shower?
Fuck knows. When the house was on fire? So detectives found it strange that all 3 victims had been stabbed in a similar way, many times focused on the chest.
Yeah.
They also noted there were no defensive wounds. So there was literally no struggle. No fingerprints or blood were found on that knife. And one officer apparently scribbled a note to a colleague that said, if he's just stabbed his brother, where's the blood? You said this too.
Thank you. I should have been a policeman.
But despite all of this, the Crown accepted Jeffrey's version of events. And in 1995, he was charged only with his brother's death. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of provocation. 2 psychologists came to the conclusion he had no mental illness or history of violence. He was released on a 5-year good behaviour bond, and the coroner found that Stephen and Helen had been killed by Christopher. That was that, Geordie.
Wow.
Case closed. And thank you for listening.
That's the end.
That's it.
Whatever
if
you do.
only, yeah, wherever you are. Thanks for listening. No, of course, that's not the bloody end here.
I was on the edge of my seat, actually, Michelle.
So am I.
We've been to IKEA and Michelle was still in there. We were waiting sort of 20 minutes. Little bitch.
I will say, Jeffrey inherited almost $1 million from that family estate.
Right.
900,000 odd Aussie dollars, including the house and his grandmother Jessie's property. So in 1995, $1 million was a fuck ton of money. Jeffrey, with all this cash, he went back to university. He finished his degree. He started working as an engineer. His relationship with Hayley ended, but he later married a woman called Rebecca, who was a fellow engineering student. And they built this very nice life in St. Ives, where they bought a house with that money. It's a fancy suburb in Sydney. They eventually had 3 daughters. And friends described Jeffrey as polite and calm and very family-focused. But there was someone, Geordie, who just could not get their head around Jeffrey's story.
Was it the neighbour?
No. This person who really could not swallow that everything went down the way that Jeffrey said it did was his uncle, Tony Gilham.
Do you know what? This is giving me vibes of a British family annihilation murder that we have talked about. White House Farm.
White House Farm. I knew you were going to say
Jeremy
that.
Bamber. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Uncle comes in.
Uncle Tony Gilham. Now, he was Jeffrey's dad's, Stephen's, half-brother.
Half-brother, okay.
Tony had been calling bullshit on this whole story since the funerals.
Yeah.
Because at the funeral, he said Jeffrey showed no emotion.
Wow.
Even as the coffins apparently were being lowered, he was like, something's off about this. And when months passed before Jeffrey collected his parents' ashes, Tony was like, nah, this kid did the whole thing.
Right. Oh, what a feeling to realise that when that penny drops.
Yep. Tony also did not believe that Christopher, the older brother, was capable of killing anyone.
Sure.
He said this kid was gentle and kind, and the idea that Christopher had murdered his parents over money, as Jeffrey had said, made absolutely no sense to him. And the more he thought about it, the more convinced he was that Jeffrey had killed the lot and framed his dead brother, who clearly had no voice to defend himself.
Yeah. He made sure of that, if indeed he was guilty.
Well, yes.
We'll get to the end first before I make any out there claims.
So Tony began contacting the police and the Director of Public Prosecutions, urging them to reopen this case. And he pointed out that Jeffrey, as I mentioned earlier, had inherited like a lot of money from the family estate, including the house and the grandmother Jessie's property. He also told police that Jessie had phoned Tony in distress, saying Jeffrey was pressuring her to sign over her share of that house to him. Totally disgusting, in my opinion.
So she was still alive when he inherited her property?
Most of the property.
Right, it wasn't 100%. She was still alive and she owned the rest and she's living in it. Got it.
She still had a share of it.
Okay.
Yes, and she was living in it. Tony flew to Sydney and met up with some detectives and was begging them to look into Jeffrey's, quote, bullshit story. One officer told him they had originally wanted to charge Jeffrey with all 3 murders, but the Department of Public Prosecutions, the DPP, had decided there just wasn't enough evidence. But that answer did not satisfy Tony, so he started writing to journalists. He was calling Talkback Radio. He wanted that case looked at. And finally, he got 60 Minutes on board. Now, 60 Minutes was this huge Channel 9 program with massive ratings, and they looked into injustices.
Yeah.
It's a bit schlocky, but...
It's sensational journalism, isn't it?
It is.
Sharks! Killers in our waters!
All of that stuff. But people watched it. This was back in the day when there were, 4 channels?
Yeah.
People were glued to their tellies.
It was a big event. It was Event TV, wasn't it?
Yep. And they aired a report on the killings in 1997. And the program did manage to raise fresh doubts about Jeffrey's story. And so an independent forensic pathologist called Dr. Godfrey Oakley examined the evidence and said the lack of blood found on Christopher's body, remember he was found in that robe, who was the one who supposedly killed the parents, suggested he was not the attacker.
Didn't think that one through. What's the other guy called? Christopher?
Jeffrey. So he concluded it was far more likely that there had been a single killer. And of course, the finger was pointed at Jeffrey, who went over next door, totally clean,
Fabricated
cold
his
as a
story.
chicken, and then walked away with everything. So public pressure grew. And in 1999, a new coronial inquest was ordered. And over several months, the court reviewed the evidence. The lack of blood on Christopher's body, the jerry can, the timing, the similarity with all the stab wounds. And the coroner found there was enough to suggest maybe Jeffrey was responsible for killing his parents. And he recommended the DPP consider laying charges. But Geordie, of course, by this point, key pieces of evidence mysteriously had vanished.
Right.
The knife was gone. The clothing was gone. Carpet samples all somehow were gone or destroyed.
Who's done that?
Fuck knows. So with little physical evidence left from that case, unfortunately, the DPP refused to prosecute. And Tony, the uncle, was fucking furious. He accused the authorities of protecting a killer. And at one point, he parked his car outside the DPP Sydney office with a sign that said, "The DPP is protecting a mass killer called Jeffrey Gilham." He was obsessed.
Wow.
So for Tony, it was his personal mission to get justice for his brother Stephen. And for Jeffrey, this marked the beginning of a long fight to defend his name.
Yes.
So by the early 2000s, Jeffrey and Rebecca Gilham were living their best life on Sydney's North Shore. Jeffrey had a really good job as an engineer. They had, at that point, 2 young daughters, and life was good. Jeffrey was sailing this small boat he'd inherited from his father, which was the same boat they used to sail on weekends down at Woronora. But this absolutely galled Tony Gilham. And he just felt that Jeffrey had gotten away with 3 murders, and he just was pushing.
Yeah.
And after years of letter writing and interviews and protests, his persistence actually finally paid off. And in 2004, the New South Wales Homicide Squad agreed to again reopen the investigation.
Amazing.
Because, yes, all that physical evidence, like the knife, the clothing, all gone, but they opened the case hoping to uncover something new that might convince the DPP to lay charges against Jeffrey. So detectives began combing through these old files, and what they found was that several items of Jeffrey's clothing had been found in the burnt remains in the lounge room.
Oh.
Mm.
Ah.
Because remember, he went over in his boxers.
Yes.
His girlfriend at the time, Hayley, confirmed that the clothes that were found were the same clothes he had been wearing when she had gone over for dinner that night. The investigators wondered why the fuck were those clothes upstairs if he'd supposedly been asleep in the boat shed.
Right.
Didn't add up. Also, none of the clothes had blood on them, leading to the theory that Jeffrey might have stripped off before attacking his family to avoid getting blood on himself, and then he left the clothes behind to burn in that fire.
Really thought it through.
They also looked at where Christopher, the brother, where Christopher's glasses were found. Christopher was really short-sighted and he wore those glasses constantly, was never without them. Even for short little, walks around the house, he always wore those glasses. And after the murders, the glasses were discovered on the window ledge in the downstairs bathroom.
Oh.
Friends and Christopher's ex-girlfriend said he never went anywhere without those glasses on because his eyesight was so bad. And the placement of the glasses made detectives doubt that he could have gone upstairs in the dark to kill his parents without wearing them. They thought it was more likely that Jeffrey had moved those glasses deliberately so Christopher would be at a disadvantage if he came upstairs during the attack.
Oh, God.
Detectives also questioned the idea that Christopher had killed his parents over money or a car, because Christopher didn't really like driving. He hated it.
Right.
He rarely used the family car and he had no history of aggression. And the version of events that Jeffrey was peddling was becoming harder to believe. So when police re-interviewed the first responders from the night of the murders, one firefighter remembered that when Jeffrey was brought near him, he also could smell petrol on him.
Oh, gosh.
Another said Jeffrey, who was standing near the garage outside, had told them, "Don't go inside the house. Someone's got a knife." Investigators believed that this so-called warning was actually an attempt to stop the firefighters from putting out the flames too soon. It seemed to them that Jeffrey had wanted the fire to destroy as much evidence as possible. The theory was that after stabbing his parents and brother, Jeffrey had then tried to start a larger fire because it was also pointed out that the smell that Ted Warner, the neighbour, thought was kerosene on Jeffrey could, have been this petrol from the so-called attempt to siphon that fuel from the car in the jerry can. But if he'd already showered before bed, as apparently he said he did, that smell should not have still been on him hours later.
Exactly.
So with all this renewed interest in the case, a new detective was brought on board to lead the inquiry into these deaths. He went through an old storeroom at Sutherland Police Station and managed to find 3 cassette tapes, apparently recorded by Jeffrey while Jeffrey was at school.
Oh.
Apparently on one, he had reviewed a book called Stories from Suburban Road by an Australian writer called Tom Hungerford, where he compared his own family to the characters in the book, saying he too had an older brother who was always favoured by the parents and that he got in trouble for things that the older brother got away with. Police thought this sounds a bit like jealousy and a bit of a grudge.
Yeah.
So they were like, maybe there's something in this. And Tony Gilham, the uncle, thought the same.
Right, but is there grounds for murder?
Who knows what goes on? I mean, we have looked at cases before where there was a brother who was jealous of the younger sister and murdered her. A Canberra case.
Oh, yes, that's right. And there was also White House Farm, which is the same as well. Of course.
Grudges run deep. So the uncle thought the money, the inheritance, and a bit of envy had played a role in this. And friends of the parents, Stephen and Helen, had told journalists that the family was kind of a bit tight with money. Oh. And that when Jeffrey was loaned money to buy a car, the parents charged him interest.
Oh, my God.
To teach him a lesson about life and money.
All right.
So Tony said that this kind of strictness might have fueled Jeffrey's bitterness.
Okay.
Especially when, apparently, Jeffrey was mixing with very well-to-do sailing friends and maybe wanted to keep up. Tony says this was a hate crime. Wow. And the lead detective later told journalist Shelley Gare, who wrote a piece in the Sydney Morning Herald, this was a very passionate hate crime. Jeffrey hated his family.
Oof.
So, by 2005, detectives felt they finally had a picture of what might have happened. They believed Jeffrey had spent weeks preparing and was kind of laying the groundwork with friends saying, oh, my brother's unstable.
Huh.
That night, after Hayley, the girlfriend, had left, they think Jeffrey had waited in the main house until everyone was asleep, and then shortly before 4 a.m., they think he went into his parents' bedroom, took a knife and maybe that axe as backup.
Jesus.
And Stephen, the dad, who had no defensive wounds, was most likely attacked in his sleep.
Yeah.
Helen, it seems, probably woke up and may have made it as far as the lounge room before she was killed.
Oh, God.
When Christopher came upstairs, they think Jeffrey chased him back down to the rumpus room, and that's where Jeffrey then stabbed him.
God.
Afterwards, detectives said Jeffrey, they think, cleaned himself up and the knife, that he then planted a syringe and paracetamol paste in Christopher's bedroom to make it look like he'd planned to take his own life.
Oh.
And then started that fire to destroy all the evidence.
Wow.
But when petrol was just not getting that fire started, they think he used a bit of mineral terps instead.
Right.
And they believed he stayed long enough in that house to make sure the fire took hold before running next door. Apparently he was a little bit breathless on the emergency call, but they think it was an act.
Okay.
In 2005, the police submitted this full brief of evidence to the DPP. They accepted it, and Jeffrey was charged with the murders of Stephen and Helen Gilham and was served with what was called an ex officio indictment, meaning the case would go straight to trial without any kind of committal hearing.
Well, how old is he at this point?
Right, let's see. He's married with 2 kids. He's got another on his way. I think he's late 30s, early 40s. Thing is, Jeffrey's lawyers were arguing that this case was unfair and it breached the rule against double jeopardy. But the court was like, nope.
Do we have that in Australia?
Apparently you can argue it, but the court was like, no. And they said the new evidence justified a trial. And the case was reopened in early 2008 at the Supreme Court of New South Wales. And the prosecution said Jeffrey had murdered his parents for financial gain and then staged the scene to blame his brother. They called witnesses who described Christopher as gentle, intelligent and calm. And Christopher's ex-girlfriend said he never had any kind of temper to speak of, and she could never imagine him hurting anyone. Now, one key point for the prosecution was that Christopher couldn't have committed the murders without his glasses.
Exactly.
They said Jeffrey's story did not add up and did not fit the evidence because the fire patterns didn't match his version, and the lack of effort to put those flames out showed guilt because Jeffrey did not do a single thing to try and stop that fire. And that's not what an innocent man would do.
Nor would he chase his brother down the stairs with a knife. You'd be confused. You wouldn't just assume that it was him that killed your parents.
You'd fucking ring 000 yourself. You would try to put out that fire and you'd at least call the fire brigade, you know? So experts also apparently testified that the stab wounds on all 3 victims were very similar. Same depth, same focus on the chest, and that it was unlikely that 2 people would attack in exactly the same way using the same knife. The defense, however, for Jeffrey, told a different story. They said everything happened exactly as Jeffrey had always said it did. Christopher, they argued, had become depressed and unstable, and they pointed out that the police had found 2 empty packets of paracetamol, a syringe, and a glass with traces of that drug, paracetamol, in Christopher's bedroom. And to them, they said he planned to kill himself after killing his parents. Now, the defense said Christopher had likely showered after stabbing the parents, explaining why his body was clean. They suggested that he had gone downstairs after the attack, realised his mother was still alive when he heard her on the intercom.
Wow.
And rushed back up to finish what he'd started, just as Jeffrey arrived.
Oh, my God.
So a surgeon for the defence testified that although Christopher's eyesight was poor, and remember, this is for the defence, Jeffrey's people are saying this, they were saying Christopher's eyesight was poor, but he could have still navigated those familiar surroundings without his glasses. I say, why would he do that? Anyway, the defence also said the similarities in the wounds were just coincidence, and that blood and fingerprints could have been washed away by the thousands of litres of water used to fight the fire.
Well,
that is a possibility.
A good point.
They questioned the claim that Jeffrey's clothes upstairs proved his guilt, saying he'd showered there before bed and then left them for his mum to wash. Apparently, as he often did.
Okay.
He's 23 years old.
Doesn't make any difference.
No.
He's still a man.
Still a man.
And he lives at home.
Yes. They also said the fact that he was as cold as a fridge chook when he arrived at the neighbour's house.
Shock.
Was a symptom of shock, not guilt.
Yeah.
One issue, though, that troubled both sides was that there was carbon monoxide found in the blood of the parents and Christopher, and it was higher than normal.
Oh.
Helen's was at 3%, Stephen's was at 4%, and Christopher's was at 6%. None of them smoked, and this suggested that they'd all inhaled some smoke before dying.
Oh.
So if Christopher had died first, as the prosecution claimed, how had he inhaled smoke from a fire that started later?
Yeah.
The Crown's forensic pathologist told the jury, don't read too much into that, saying the levels were too low to prove anything.
Right.
So after weeks of evidence, the jury could not agree, and the first trial ended with a no verdict, and a retrial was ordered for later that year. At the second trial, the prosecution dropped the argument about the financial motive, but kept kind of the same case, that Jeffrey killed his parents, framed his brother. They said his version of events was carefully constructed and that the supposed inconsistencies, like he was clean, the missing half hour, the similarities of the wounds, all pointed to the fact that Jeffrey was guilty.
Right.
The defence said Jeffrey had acted only after discovering the murders and that he had been consistent from the start, and that the Crown's case relied too heavily on theory. But after 8 days of deliberation, the jury found Geoffrey Gilham guilty of murdering his parents, and he looked stunned as the verdict was read, and he was sentenced to 2 life terms. Justice Roderick Howie described Jeffrey as a consummate liar and a brilliant actor. He said the killings were coldly planned and that the crime scene had been manipulated to mislead investigators. And he told the court that there was no provocation and that the parents had been loving and supportive. Tony Gilham, the uncle, was like, fuck yes. And Christopher, he said, went to his grave as a convicted killer of his parents, which was not true. And that's why he did all this, to clear Christopher's name. And he vowed to recover Jeffrey's inheritance for the family and demanded an inquiry into why it had taken so long to bring the case to trial. On the other side, Jeffrey's wife, Rebecca, she was devastated.
I bet, for many reasons.
Well, she believed her husband was innocent.
Right.
And she was like, no, this is a mistake. Jeffrey was sent to prison. He spent the next 3 years.
2 life sentences.
2 life sentences.
Why not 3?
Because it was manslaughter.
Oh.
Apparently. But that doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's murder.
He wasn't charged with 3. He wasn't given 3 life sentences. But he did spend the next 3 years in prison in Goulburn. And apparently he was a model prisoner. Meanwhile, the wife set up a Justice for Jeff support group. She and friends and former classmates, who were, you know, all these civil engineering peeps, they began reviewing the trial evidence. And they looked at the stab wounds, carbon monoxide levels, and they were like, this doesn't add up. Research they did found that the stab injuries showed the chest wounds are very common and that differences in angle and spacing and depth meant the wounds weren't necessarily inflicted by the same person. They also said that Christopher's wounds were mostly horizontal and close together, whereas his parents' wounds were more vertical. Secondly, they looked at the carbon monoxide evidence, and they said the prosecution had downplayed Christopher's 6% level, arguing it was within normal limits and not relevant. But this Justice for Jeff group got an independent opinion from American toxicologist Professor David Penny, who said the level indicated Christopher had inhaled smoke for 2 to 4 minutes before his death, which meant he was alive when the fire started, which then supported Jeffrey's version of events.
Right.
The group then reviewed the fire demonstrations, which apparently were presented in court, and they said the fire would have spread faster and more intensely than the prosecution had suggested.
So many back and forths.
Yeah, they said the cassette tapes
can't be used as proof.
Well, they said it wasn't Jeffrey speaking.
Ah, right.
Who knows? They also said the statement about the firefighters, or from the firefighters about petrol on Jeffrey and his warnings about a knife, had been given more than a decade after the event and were unreliable. But they also said there was a fingerprint found on the intercom, a bloody fingerprint.
Right.
This was never tested, which could have suggested that Helen did get to that intercom while still alive, which would contradict the theory that she'd been killed before Jeffrey arrived.
Yeah.
So with all of this, Jeffrey's legal team filed an appeal in 2011 and argued on 18 different grounds that he was innocent. And long story short, the Court of Criminal Appeal reviewed the case. Judges were like, this is maybe a bit dodgy. And in December 2011, after more than 3 years behind bars, 42-year-old Jeffrey, his conviction was quashed.
Oh,
he was released.
Right.
And they said a miscarriage of justice had occurred. And he walked out of court and was a free man.
That's a bloody roller coaster, Michelle. Was he? Wasn't he? Was the other brother to blame? Wasn't he? What's with the kerosene? What's with the chicken skin? I just don't know what to think about this.
Well, Tony Gilham, the uncle, was fucking devastated and outraged. And outside the court, he was like, I'm going to keep going after you. The thing is, he was so wound up by this. Geordie, 3 weeks later, Tony died of a heart attack.
Oh, no.
Reportedly exhausted after years of obsessively trying to get justice for his brother.
Yeah.
But then, following his acquittal, Jeffrey returned to this quiet life, nice life on the North Shore. He rebuilt his career. Apparently, with the grandma, he supported her until she moved into a nursing home. And ultimately, it all just went away. Jeffrey was out to live his life. Tony was dead. The whole family never had a voice. And, you know, it's gone down in history as there was a miscarriage of justice. And Jeffrey is free.
Wowee.
Now, just to wrap this up, there is apparently a book called Blood Brother by a guy called Robin Bowles about this case. And hands up here, I did not read that book. I'm only armed with what I've read about this case on the internet.
Right.
And even though he has walked away and been acquitted, I have to say my gut feeling here is that Jeffrey did kill them all. He's blamed it on Christopher, who obviously cannot defend himself. And Jeffrey has had full control over this narrative because all three apparently were alive when that fire was lit. Jeffrey never ever spoke of trying to help his parents who were alive. He never called 000. He never got help. Even if they were unconscious or looked dead, they're your parents, Geordie. Wouldn't you not try and help them or call the cops or put out the fire or at the very least call the fire department? In his version of events, he goes against all rational behaviour. He chases his brother around a house that is on fire and kills him.
Yeah.
He's got no injuries. There's not a single burn on this guy. He's completely clean. He doesn't call for help. He takes half an hour to get to the house next door where he goes in boxer shorts, cold as a chicken, has a kerosene smell about him. What happened in that missing half hour?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot can be burned and destroyed. To me, I feel like there was a clear motive of inheritance, and it's really sad that he got this lovely life while his brother and parents died horrifically from stab wounds and fire. There's so many inconsistencies. Fair play. He is a free man, and that's what the court has ruled.
Don't come for you with your opinion.
I just feel like there's so much that doesn't add up. What do you think?
I'm with you on that front, but I'm just going to circle back to Jeremy Bamber and the White House farm case again from 1985. Did you know that last year somebody, I think it was a journalist, possibly uncovered some information that provided an alibi potentially for Bamber? He's always maintained his innocence.
Okay.
And he's still in prison. He's 65 now, apparently, or maybe 66. He's maintained his innocence. What if he wasn't the one who was the perpetrator of all these murders inside that house? His parents, his nephews, his sister.
Well, this is it. Life can be stranger than fiction. What if this guy, Jeffrey, what if it all did go down as he said?
Yeah.
We will never know. I'm just making an observation and an opinion that to me it kind of feels like
tricky territory.
He did it just because. Why the fuck are you not ringing 000, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of whys. A lot of how come he didn't do this, of course. And
I'm no expert, you know?
No, we're not experts. We're experts at chatting shit, but that's about it.
So there you have it. Done.
Thank you so much, Michelle. What a twisty-turny case. I thought it was going to be so much more clear-cut by the end.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you basically took us back to square one.
So
that's all right. That's what happens in life. It's not always so clear-cut.
No. But I'll tell you what is clear-cut.
We've got to say goodbye.
We've got to say goodbye now
Farewell.
that we've given you all of this food for thought.
Bit of true crime, real-life action for you there from Michelle. Thank you for that deep dive.
My absolute pleasure. And with that, Geordie, I think there's only 3 things left to say.
Wherever you are.
Whatever you do,
just keep
eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping, eavesdropping, dropping, eavesdropping, dropping, eavesdropping, eavesdropping, dropping, dropping, eavesdropping, eavesdropping all day long. Eavesdropping, this is the song. Drop it like it's hot.
AI is transforming customer service. It's real and it works. And with Finn, we've built the #1 AI agent for customer service. We're seeing lots of cases where it's solving up to 90% of real queries for real businesses. This includes the real-world complex stuff like issuing a refund or cancelling an order. And we also see it when Finn goes up against competitors. It's top of all the performance benchmarks, top of the G2 leaderboard, and if you're not happy, we'll refund you up to $1 million, which I think says it all. Check it out for yourself at fin.ai.